The Senate of the 34th Special Session of the Nevada Legislature will come to order. Please rise for the invocation by Senator Spearman and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. God, creator of the universe and giver of all that is good and champion for the poor, downtrodden, and those living in the social margins, we come this day thanking you for all the gifts of life we enjoy, but Lord, let us not be complacent. Let us work for justice and equality for all of your children. Agitate us to consider the plight of the poor, the sick, the weak, the infirmed, and vulnerable as we deliberate the different aspects of this budget legislation. As you were present at the beginning of the time and brought order out of chaos, be present with us today as we deliberate matters that affect all the lives of Nevadans. Let us do so without malice, selfishness, or acrimony. Fill us with your love, endow us with your wisdom, and give us the spiritual humility so that all that we do on this day reflects your will for your people and all of humanity. This is our hope and petition. And we close this prayer with the firm belief that you have heard our concerns and now empower us to accomplish the task set before us with truthfulness and without deceitful motivation. It is in the name of the Creator who is concerned about all of creation and the God of the universe. We declare this prayer answered for all of Abraham's children and all those who follow the Jewish carpenter. We say amen. For those who are descendants of Isaac, the Jewish blessing of Shalom. And for Ishmael's descendants, salam.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Senator Canizaro. Senator Daly. Senator Daniate. Senator Dondera-Loop. Senator Flores. Senator Goicoechea. Senator Hammond. Senator Hansen. Senator Harris. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Scheibel. Senator Seavers-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Senator Stone. Senator Titus.
Let the record reflect there are 21 senators present. Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the organization of the Senate of this 82nd session of the Nevada Legislature be designated as the organization of the Senate for the 34th Special Session of the Nevada Legislature.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Secretary of the Senate be instructed to insert the 34th Special Session organization into the Journal of the Senate.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro. Oh, that's it. Okay. All right. I will now appoint Senators Hammond and Harris to notify the Assembly that the Senate is organized and ready for business. I will also appoint Senators Donate and Scheibel to notify the Governor that the Senate is organized and ready for business. Will the committees please attend to your duties and immediately return to the Senate chambers when you have accomplished your mission? Thank you. Senator Canizaro, would you like to confirm the members of the news media at this time?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the news media personnel listed on your desk be accepted and accredited as members of the press, and that they be allowed to use the appropriate media facilities in the legislative building.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will now be in recess. The Senate is back in order.
The delegation from the Assembly is at the bar of the Senate.
Good evening. Welcome to the Senate.
Mr. President of the Senate.
The Assembly is ready to begin the 34th special session.
We are looking forward to working with you this evening. Thank you for coming.
Us too.
We are again in recess.
Appointed committee.
The Senate is back in order. The committees assigned to notify the Assembly and the Governor have returned to the chamber. Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your appointed committee has informed the Assembly that the Senate is organized and ready for business. Thank you.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your appointed committee has informed Governor Lombardo that the Senate is organized and ready for business.
Thank you. Order of business 5, messages from the Governor.
We received no letter from the governor concerning this proclamation.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Secretary dispense with reading the governor's proclamation.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Secretary of the Senate be instructed to insert the proclamation into the Journal of the Senate.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Senate Resolution 1, introduced by Senators Canizaro and Seavers Gansert, adopts the rules of the Senate for the 34th special session of the Nevada Legislature. End of resolution.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Senate Resolution Number 1.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Senate Resolution 2, introduced by Senators Canizaro and Seavers-Gansert, provides that no allowances will be paid for the 34th special session of the Nevada Legislature for periodicals, stamps, stationery, or communications. End of resolution.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Senate Resolution Number 2.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Yeah, so we don't have it. Okay. We are on order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that for the remainder of the 34th special session, the Secretary of the Senate read the number, sponsor, and summary of all bills and resolutions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that for the remainder of the 34th special session, the reading of the journal be dispensed with, and the President and Secretary be authorized to make any necessary additions or corrections.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Pursuant to Rule 16.5, I hereby appoint the members of the Committee on Finance from the 82nd Legislative Session to serve on a Select Committee on Finance for the 34th special session.
So, okay, we are in recess. The Senate is back in order. We are on order of business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, June 6, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day adopted Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 1, signed Susan Furlong, Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 1, introduced by Legislative Operations and Elections, adopts the joint rules of the Senate and the Assembly for the 34th Special Session of the Nevada Legislature. End of resolution.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adopt Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 1.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that all necessary rules be suspended and that Assembly Concurrent Resolution Number 1 be immediately transmitted to the Assembly.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in recess. The Senate is back in order. Order of Business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Carson City, June 6, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Assembly Bill Number 1, signed Susan Furlong, Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of Business 10, introduction, first reading, and reference.
Assembly Bill 1, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager and Senator Canizaro, authorizes and provides funding for certain projects of capital improvement. End of bill.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to refer Assembly Bill Number 1 to the Select Committee on Finance.
There are no objections, so ordered. Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand in recess to the call of the chair.
We are in recess.
Senate Finance behind the bar.
The Senate is back in order. Order of business number 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Select Committee on Finance, to which was referred Assembly Bill Number 1, is of the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation do pass. Signed, Maryland Dondero Loop, Chair.
Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that all necessary rules be suspended and that Assembly Bills Numbers 1, just reported out of committee, be declared an emergency measures under the Constitution and placed on third reading and final passage and considered next.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Order of business 13, reading and final passage.
Assembly Bill 1, introduced by Senator Yeager and Senator Canizaro, authorizes and provides funding for certain projects of capital improvement. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 34 into Section 34 and a bill. This bill requires a two-thirds majority vote.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 1 provides the implementation of the 2023 Capital Improvement Program as approved by the Money Committees. The bill includes funding in the amount of $1.189 billion for the 2023 Capital Improvement Program and $32.3 million for resource conservation and preservation programs of the state outside of the CIP. The bill includes the following major funding sources to support the 2023 CIP. $672 million in general obligation bonds, $422.2 million in general fund appropriations, $69.9 million in federal funds for the Office of the Military, the Department of Veteran Services, and the Department of Administration projects, $11.5 million in state highway funds for the Department of Motor Vehicles and Department of Public Safety projects, $5.4 million in agency funds to support the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and the Department of Administration projects, $5.5 million in excess funding reallocated from projects approved in prior capital improvement programs, $3 million in slot tax funding from the Special Higher Education Capital Construction Fund. Assembly Bill 1 provides $830.5 million to support 30 construction projects in the 2023 Capital Improvement Program. Assembly Bill 1 provides $258.9 million for 49 various maintenance projects for existing state facilities. Maintenance projects include, but not limited to, approximately $86.9 million for the Department of Corrections, Assembly Bill 1 provides general fund appropriations of $114.2 million and authorizes the issuance of $100 million in state general obligation bonds to support various capital improvement projects in Carson City and in Las Vegas for the Legislative Council Bureau. Additionally, the bill clarifies the supervision and control of certain property related to the Capitol Mall area and legislative parking garage in Carson City, as well as property to be acquired in Las Vegas. Section 33 is $23 million for the Culinary Academy. Thank you, Mr. President.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in opposition to AB 1 of the 34th special session. SB 231 from 2023 made appropriations to the Interim Finance Committee for allocation to school districts that budget salary increases for certain employees, namely a salary increase for teachers and education support professionals. I support our teachers and I support our public schools, but I also support public charter schools. And I believe that $32 million should have been appropriated to public charter school teachers and educational support professionals for salary equity to match what was passed in SB 231 from the 2023 year for traditional public school teachers and educational support staff. I would encourage everyone to vote no. Thank you.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, too, rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 1. I guess the people in Nevada, frankly, are probably wondering why we're having a special session, because this was completely avoidable. The Republican Party and our caucus in the Senate would have gladly supported this if we would have had a mere $32 million put into this bill or in the budget and somewhere or another. They may say, well, it's not germane. Well, they can figure out a way to do it if they really wanted to. So while we are trying to get $32 million to 2,970 public school teachers, they are public school teachers, the majority party has refused to allow that. We gave $8,300 to every public school teacher in the state of Nevada, but then for the 2,970 that are in the public charter schools, we've refused to give them that same pay raise. We set aside $230 million to pay teachers, but for some reason we deliberately snubbed the 2,970 public school teachers in the charter schools. Now, there is an obvious opposition to the constant growth in charter schools in this very institution. Some numbers. In 2011, there were 8,000 Nevada students enrolled in charter schools. Today, there are more than 60,000 Nevada kids enrolled in charter schools. In fact, there are several people in this very body and in the Assembly who have children in the charter school system. The increase has been a total of 348%. Why are so many people putting their kids in charter schools? You know, economically, when somebody buys something, we say they are voting with their pocketbook. What we're seeing among the parents of Nevada is they are, for their children's future, voting for charter schools. And rather than supporting that in this institution, we seem to have done everything possible to throw obstacles in their way. We have, in this session, spent, and I talked to our fiscal staff, we have spent over $50 billion. We have allocated $50 billion. That's $50,000 million, but we couldn't come up with $32 million for the teachers in the charter schools. It just doesn't make any sense at all. You know, the number of charter schools have climbed from 31 in 2011. There are now 78 charter schools. And guess what? When you go and see those charter schools, because we've refused to do the capital improvement funding as well for these, giving them token amounts, they're secondary crummy schools. And in spite of that, we see this massive increase. Now there's almost 12% of all the kids in Nevada going to charter schools. So they are, frankly, they're outperforming the rest of the public schools, and it seems to me that we should be rewarding the teachers that are doing the great job. Now, an issue came up, and that was, well, supposedly there's a bunch of uncertified teachers in the charter schools. So what are the actual numbers? Of the 2,970 public school teachers in the charter schools, there is a whopping 43 of them that are unclassified. So that argument is absolutely bogus. When you look at those 43 too, because charter schools do provide a very unique thing. In my days, we had shops. So if somebody wanted to, for example, right now in a charter school, have a plumbing class, I could go there as a licensed master plumber, 37-year contractor, and I could teach a plumbing class. I would be an unclassified employee. I shouldn't have to go and get a certification from the Nevada Department of Education to teach something very basic like that. And that's those 43 people that we're talking about. They're not like lousy teachers that can't get a job in the regular public school system. They're, in fact, specialized people that perform a very valuable service to the children of our state. So because of those 43, we've heard in this very chamber, that's the reason why we can't give them a pay raise. So I want the citizens of the state of Nevada, who are undoubtedly wondering, what's going on with the Nevada Senate? Why is the legislature in special session? For all of you out there listening, we're holding out to make sure that the public school teachers that are taking care of 60,000 Nevada kids get the pay raise they deserve. It's really weird, too, to be sitting here basically begging the majority party to give public school teachers a raise. So we need, before we leave tonight, I would love for this to happen right now. And I will tell you, I will promise you this. The majority of my party who are going to vote against this bill would gladly support it if we put it on the desk and we add an amendment to it to add $32 million. After spending $50,000 million, surely we can, before we leave tonight, figure out a way to amend into that bill a $32 million allocation. And if you do that, I will vote for it, because it's that important to me to get these poor public school teachers that should be getting $8,300 apiece, like all the rest of them, that raise. We should be praising these people, should be supporting them, and we should be looking at the fact that the children are actually going there in droves. The parents love charter schools. We should be encouraging that. Considering we're somewhere at 50th or somewhere else bouncing along on the bottom for the entire time I've been in the legislature, isn't it time we turn to some innovative ideas? We want to encourage charter schools, and we should be doing that by ensuring that those teachers at least have parity with the other public school teachers. So, in the absence of a reasonable amendment that we have requested, I would urge my colleagues tonight to not support Assembly Bill 1 and stand in unison tonight with the public schools that exist out there that are being shortchanged, and make sure that we have some level of school choice for our children. So, in the interest of supporting school choice, supporting the public schools, and supporting public school teachers that got cheated out of a reasonable raise, all of us should vote tonight no on Assembly Bill 1. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Assembly Bill number 1. Let us be very clear about why we are here tonight. It is because there is a proclamation from the governor of the state of Nevada, Republican governor, that says you shall consider this particular bill. That's why we're here. So let's be very clear about that. Let's also be clear about what is included in this bill, because if we're going to talk about agreements, I'm going to say is that this was an agreed upon deal. The Republican governor who agreed to this and directed us to special session, and that is why we are here tonight. Period. Assembly Bill 1 is also good legislation that was passed, again, by a large, overwhelming majority of the people in this building who sit on the subcommittee during the prior legislative session for CIP and K through 12 funding in our Finance and Ways and Means committees. Also supported by wide, bipartisan, unanimous votes in the full committee. So let's talk about what's in this bill. Because if you're looking at this bill, what has been voted on, and for many members of this body has already been voted on in committee and subcommittee. We talked a lot about the Department of Corrections and the need to invest there. These are capital improvements to the Department of Corrections that are included in this bill, including replacing doors, locks, and security glazing. That's the kind of glazing that goes in windows so that you can't just break them out. Installing security cameras at High Desert State Prison, replacing surveillance cameras at Northern Nevada Correctional Center, replacing surveillance camera systems at Lovelock Correctional Center, upgrading perimeter security fences at Southern Desert Correctional Center, installing site security cameras for Lee State Prison. These are cameras and security provisions for departments of corrections. If I remember correctly, there has even been commentary on this floor as recently as maybe 24 hours ago about how much we should support the Department of Corrections and ensure that our folks who work in the Department of Corrections can be safe. Part of that is ensuring that there's proper surveillance cameras so that people who are convicted of murder are not simply walking out of our prisons. This will help that. Capital improvements for the Department of Health and Human Services for things like a Nevada forensic facility, the Southern Nevada forensic facility. That's a lab to test things like SANE exams, rape kits, people who are victims of sexual assault, and other criminal actions. Offices of the military for maintenance projects to make sure that they are taken care of. Projects for the Nevada system of higher education, for our college students, for our higher education systems. For the Department of Public Safety, making sure that they have the necessary investments to support that. How about our veterans? My colleague from Senate District 1 has talked a lot about her service to our country. How about Nevada Veterans Homes, Southern Nevada State Veterans Home, Northern Nevada State Veterans Home, Nevada Veterans Memorial Cemetery, North Las Vegas State Veterans Home planning pieces. That's what's in this bill. The Marlette Lake system that helps make sure that there's clean drinking water for people. Offices of the military to make sure that they have the proper facilities and support. We talked about veteran services. There's a lot of that in here. And in addition to what is in this bill, this is also the bonding and the debt service for the state. That's important for projects that we have to pay on. That's in this bill. That's what Assembly Bill number 1 does. And if we are going to talk about what we have done in the prior legislative session that we were here closing in the last 24 hours, then we can also talk about $2 billion that went into education, to the people-centered funding plan. That also flows to charter schools. We can talk about the $291 million from the general fund that was additional revenues to the people-centered funding plan that also went to support our public schools, including public charter schools. There are also, and I don't remember exactly what the number was, I think there was at least one bucket of $15 million for charter schools that was unspent, other monies in ARPA dollars for charter schools that were unspent. We are not neglecting our public schools across the board and our students across the board. So to suggest otherwise is to ignore the work of the prior legislative session. To wonder why it is that we are here at 10:45 at night is because despite negotiations with the Republican governor in order to make sure that this good piece of legislation that people voted for, bipartisan, across the board in both houses, would pass to support veterans and health and human services pieces and the Department of Corrections and the Office of the Military and other good projects that are in here, and to ensure the continued bonding capacity for the state and that we make good on our debt payments. That's what's in this bill. But we are here because there was a call for a special session to discuss this particular bill, which I would urge my colleagues to remember is full of a lot of good policy that we have all supported. So if we are going to play politics here, fine. But I would urge your support because there is good policy in here that will help and support Nevadans, period. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, colleagues. One of my favorite actors is Morgan Freeman, who once said, "The best way to guarantee a loss is to quit." I have never quitted on achieving goals in my life. Have I always won? No. But I never gave up and will never give up, and I remain proud of the life that I have lived. The Senate Republican caucus here in Nevada has been the strongest, most cohesive caucus I have ever served on and with. Our constituents expect us to fight, and they don't expect us to quit. Elections have consequences, and the citizens of this state elected overwhelmingly Sheriff Joe Lombardo as our new governor. I support Governor Joe Lombardo not because he's perfect, but because he is a God-fearing man that has to balance a lot of complicated issues to bring forward his agenda, the citizens' agenda. And he succeeded with his bold promises and goals. He promised no new taxes. He kept that pledge. He promised to significantly fund public education. He kept that promise too. He promised to enhance public safety, especially in our schools. He kept that promise. He promised to support and protect our Second Amendment's rights, and he has boldly kept that promise. He also was committed to championing school choice, but unfortunately, friends on the other side of the aisle blocked these efforts. He was committed to championing election integrity protection supported by 70% of the 3.2 million Nevadans. My friends on the other side of the aisle blocked these efforts. He was committed to championing more graduate education programs to foster more GME, more residencies, so we could have more doctors to provide better access for our citizens that need that medical care. But the most important promise that this governor has made is to veto bills that were not in the best interests of Nevadans. And he has succeeded in that promise. This governor will likely veto more bills than any other governor in Nevada's history. To my 150,000 constituents, many are sleeping now, maybe some are watching this tonight, can you imagine for a second if the former Democratic governor had gotten reelected? Instead, today, we'd be seeing many new and higher taxes, environmental extremism killing our economy, health benefits for undocumented citizens that would bankrupt the state, hospitals closing down because we put caps on their profitability, more decriminalization of laws making our communities even more less safe, and a homeless bill of rights that would have decimated our entertainment venues that bring significant revenue into our state coffers. I could go on, but the bottom line is that Governor Joe Lombardo has kept his word, and I believe he has God's blessings for doing so. Our Republican caucus stood firm last night to make a statement, ensuring that our constituents knew that we were listening to them. And that we did, which we constitutionally could do, to the best of our abilities to champion issues important to our constituents. Republicans will come back in 2025, my friends. I promise you, we will be bigger, we'll be stronger, and we'll do what's right and not what's politically expedient, and do what we need to do to enhance the life of 3.2 million people, irrespective of party affiliation. Good evening.
Senator Severs-Ganser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rose in firm support last night in opposition to the passage of the CIP bill because I felt funding for public charters in this budget was inadequate, and as a consequence, voted no in protest. That action sent us to a special session, yet I have no regrets. Through that action, we brought greater attention to the inequities in funding for public charter schools. Today, I worked closely with the governor and his staff and have been assured that they will continue to work diligently to find additional funds outside of the general funds to lessen this inequity. I'm grateful for their work and commitment, but I'm extremely disappointed that public charter schools are still treated as second-class schools. The numbers are clear. Enrollment has been growing in the public charter schools, and now we have around 69,000 kids, while the other school districts are declining. I pledge that I will work with the governor and his staff to try to find additional funding for public charter schools. Thank you.
Senator Neal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of AB 1. So I was looking up what we've done for charter schools this session, and I don't think we have neglected the charter schools. My colleague talked about what we've been doing for political expediency, but I'm trying to figure out what's been happening in terms of true governance. I think that we have actually tried to do a lot with the budget. So what we did for charter schools for FY24 was over $500 million. We did $668,557,000 for FY24. For FY25, we did $701,894,836. Then on top, $15 million in ARPA funds from AB 495, which came from the gold and silver tax. Then on top of that, we then did another $15 million, although I don't like the function of the state infrastructure bank, but there was $15 million for charter school and capital projects. What I'm trying to figure out is we, as our majority leader stated, we were dragged in here not by the will of the Democrats, but by the governor in order to move on a bill that was voted against by his own party. Now we're talking about how we somehow are in error or at fault for not moving the needle for charter schools when we sat for weeks and months and discussed the charter schools, and we also discussed the K-12 budget. There were a lot of things that came out of this building, and there were a lot of members that didn't even get the things that they wanted. They didn't even get fiscal notes on their bills. Their bills were killed or didn't even move out of the building. And I think that, we need to be looking at this not in terms of fighting over this last little bit of money, but trying to figure out, what did we fund? We funded homelessness. We funded schools. We actually worked with the governor for the capital projects that are there, where we're going to do $1 billion, it's $1.5 billion for buildings that have been in disrepair for years. For years. We actually gave pay raises to our state employees who had not seen a benefit for many years. And I think there's a lot of good work that happened in this building, and it was actually bipartisan in the committee. So it's confusing when we think about, it's not even about the R's versus the D's. It's about what is governing for the state of Nevada, and what should we be doing for 3 million people in the state of Nevada. And I think we tried to make those really good decisions, and within the confines of the money that we had. And, yesterday we had a series of arguments that are saying that we weren't prudent, we weren't doing the right thing, but we have been prudent. We have tried to have conversations about, where should this money go? How can we effectively deal with teachers? Our own majority leader moved a bill for $250 million for teachers. That has never been heard of. And I don't understand why we're talking about $500 million in 1 year and then an increase in another year for the charter schools, and then saying that that's not good enough. They're not second-class schools, but within the confines of the dollars that were set apart for this particular biennium, we worked within those dollars in order to fund many needs. Healthcare, we sat down and we made sure that a lot of things were funded for our citizens. And if you look at the history of this body, we have never been able to fund education, healthcare, never put money towards homelessness. And this session, we did almost $130 million towards homelessness. And it's a real issue in the state of Nevada. And it's one of the top priorities that our citizens have said needs to be managed and dealt with. I'm going to close it there, but I just rise in support of AB 1.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I look at the bill that we're about to vote on, I think it's got 24 pages. And I've gone through all of them. One of my colleagues mentioned something about quitting. So let me talk about that for a minute. You see, because in those 24 pages is money for veterans' homes. You want to talk about not quitting? How about the veterans that live in those homes? How about the veterans that want a home like that to live in, which is why we're expanding and renovating? How about the veterans, families that want a place to bury someone who didn't quit? You want to talk about quitting? Let's talk about the veterans. Anybody who served after 1975 served because they wanted to, not because they were drafted. It is no secret to anybody in this chamber tonight or anybody that has been in this chamber that doesn't know how hard I fight for veterans. And whenever you're talking about veterans, everything else is minuscule. Yes, I care about what we've done for teachers, and that was great. I voted for that too. That was great. Everything that we've done was, but every time we have a bill that has something to do with veterans, Nobody even mentions it when they get ready to vote against it. Really? Really, really? Oh my God. Don't talk to me about not quitting and you're going to quit on veterans. Don't talk to me about that. There's money in here for projects in Ely. There's money in here for projects in some of the more rural areas. But I want to talk about the money that's here for veterans. So please, y'all can miss me on thank you for your service if you can't do nothing tangible to thank us for the service. There are going to be people that are going to vote against it. I know they're going to do it. They've already said it, and some haven't even said it. I understand that. But please understand, when I vote yes for this budget, I see money in here for veterans. I see money in here for veterans who did not quit. We have a colleague on the other side of this building who has a Purple Heart. He was shot. Could have died, but shot by a sniper in Iraq. Don't talk to me about not quitting if you're going to quit on veterans. Don't talk to me about responsibility, fiscal responsibility, if you're going to quit on veterans. You know, some people are going to be upset, and that's good. I need folks to be more agitated when I talk about what we haven't done for our veterans. I need people to be more uncomfortable when we talk about what we haven't done for our veterans, okay? I'm voting for this bill. There's a lot of things in here that I like, but I really, really, really love what we're doing for our veterans. And here's what I have to say. Your mama could have served, your daddy could have served, your kids could have served, your uncles and your aunts might have served. Thank them for their service. But check this out. I'm voting for veterans because I did serve. And I don't want them to be forgotten. And the thing that I lament most about not coming back next session is because I don't know if anybody would get another budget like this, and it has money in there for veterans, and people can find all the reasons in the world to vote against it. Colleagues, brothers and sisters, let me say this. I may quit on some things, but I will never, never quit on veterans. And look, you can stand up and say, well, I'm not voting against the veterans, I'm voting against, no. Veterans are in this bill. You cannot disaggregate what is in this bill for veterans. I'll talk to anybody outside this chamber that wants to challenge me on that. But I can speak with this kind of veracity and this kind of passion because I didn't quit, and I did serve. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Real quick, we all support veterans. We all support this bill, with the exception of leaving out 2,970 public school teachers. We're going to vote for the bill. We have made a reasonable request for an amendment. Remember, in this process, what the people listening don't know is we're not allowed to amend these bills. It has to come through the majority leader. Now, we had a beautiful list of things in this bill by the majority leader, but you notice what was missing was a simple request for $32 million for the public schools. Seems very ironic, too, that we talk about giving $130 million for homelessness, but we can't come up with $32 million for the public school teachers in the charter schools. So, in my mind tonight, I absolutely support all the things in this bill. We have left a critical component out. And the reason why we're in a special session is it's important enough to us to add that $32 million, which is like nothing compared to the $50 billion that we've already allocated for those people. So for those of you like myself who are strong proponents of school choice and allowing parents to have lots of wonderful options, tonight this is a school choice bill. In the absence of a very reasonable amendment, which we cannot do, only your party can and only the majority leader can do it, we're going to have to vote against this bill if you believe in school choice. Add that amendment in, and we will all support AB 1. We want not only what's in the bill currently, but simply another $32 million for 3,000 public school teachers who should have got the $8,300 that all the other thousands of public school teachers are going to get. There is no logical reason not to do that. This is our chance tonight. It's a chance for the majority party to stand up right now and show you really care about all public school teachers in the state of Nevada with a simple $32 million amendment right now. I urge my colleagues to, number one, first, add a simple amendment, and two, once the amendment's in place, vote for AB 1. But in the absence of that amendment, we should all vote against AB 1 if you believe in school choice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Seeing no further remarks, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 14, the noes are 7. AB 1 has received a constitutional two-thirds vote. It is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
That concludes Order of Business 13.
Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that all necessary rules be suspended and that Assembly Bill number 1 be immediately transmitted to the Assembly.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Order of Business 16, remarks from the floor. Seeing none. Order of Business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. At this time, I will appoint Senators Hammond and Spearman as committee to notify the Assembly that the Senate is ready to adjourn sine die. I will also appoint Senators Scheibel and Donati as committee to notify the Governor that the Senate is ready to adjourn sine die. Will the committees please attend to their business and return to the Senate chambers as quickly as possible? We are in recess. The Senate is back in order.
Mr. President, the delegation from the Assembly is at the bar of the Senate.
Welcome to the Senate.
Good evening again, Mr. President of the Senate.
Once again, for the second time in the last 24 hours, the Assembly is ready to adjourn sine die.
Well, thank you for your service, and thanks for coming over to the Senate, and it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Senate is in recess. Okay. The Senate is back in order. Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your appointed committee has notified the Assembly that the Senate is ready to adjourn sine die.
Thank you, Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your appointed committee has notified Governor Lombardo that the Senate is ready to adjourn sine die again.
Thank you, Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I just wanted to take a moment to recognize our truly amazing staff for coming in today, being here with us yet again for what feels like maybe the umpteenth very late night that we have been here, and so we just wanted to say thank you to all of you. With that, Mr. President, I move that the 34th special session of the Senate of the Legislature of the State of Nevada adjourn, sine die.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. The 34th special session of the Senate of the Legislature of the State of Nevada is adjourned. Sine die.
Excuse me, I'd just like to remind everybody that this is the 79th anniversary of Normandy D-Day. And 16 years ago, our colleague across the aisle, June 6, 2007, was shot by a sniper in Iraq. So we thank God for those who fight for our freedom of choice. Thank you.